Thank you so much for joining us today on this webinar, Climate Smart Communities Program, Engaging Your Community in Climate Action. My name is Aude Locher. I am the Water Resources Educator with Lake Champlain Sea Grant. I am joined today by my colleague, Caroline McKelvey, who will do some behind-the-scene work. I'm going to give a brief introduction here, and we will get started with our session. So if you're not familiar with Lake Champlain Sea Grant, it's a partnership between SUNY Plattsburgh, the University of Vermont, and NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Lake Champlain Sea Grant is dedicated to the protection and sustainable use of Lake Champlain through outreach, education, and research. And one of our areas of interest is to help communities find ways to adapt to a changing climate. So I encourage you to visit our website and our social media. And Caroline will drop in the chat a link if you want to know what Lake Champlain Sea Grant is up to, and subscribe to our newsletter. So for this session, we will be using Zoom. You are in a listen-only mode. So this is pretty much what you see right now. So if you want to ask questions to the speakers during the webinar or at the end, we would like you to use the Q&A box in the Zoom toolbar. If someone asks a question that you are interested in, you can upvote a question using the thumbs up button that you'll see in the Q&A box. Now, if you want to reach out to the moderators, so Caroline and myself, we would like you to use the chat box. You would do so if you have technical difficulties, or if you would like me to ask the speakers to slow down or maybe repeat something that you may have missed. The webinar is recorded, and the recording will be available in Lake Champlain Sea Grant YouTube channel. So for today's webinar, we wanted to highlight New York State Climate Smart Communities Program, which is a way to engage local governments and community members in climate action. And we invited two wonderful speakers to talk about this program. So Carly Leary and Rochelle Armstrong. Carly works at the Adirondack North Country Association, or ANCA, as the Climate Smart Communities coordinator for the North Country. Before joining ANCA in December 2022, Carly worked in education in both formal and informal settings. So she has served as a STEM teacher, the assistant director at 4-H Camp Overlook, and as a zip line guide in the Adirondacks. Carly also serves on the Next Generation Council for the Adirondack Land Trust. Rochelle Armstrong is originally from California, and she's lived in Plattsburgh for 42 years, where she and her husband have raised their 3 children. She taught middle school English for 23 years, while also being an active part of environmental and political movements. After retiring from teaching, she served for 6 years on the City of Plattsburgh Common Council representing Ward 1. She is now the City of Plattsburgh Climate Task Force Coordinator. So before I let Carly and Rochelle take over, I just wanted to share a quick poll with you, just to have a sense of your pre-existing knowledge about this program. So I am going to launch the poll in a second. Okay, so you should see the poll. It's just one question. How familiar are you with the benefits and requirements of the New York State Climate Smart Communities Program? Not at all familiar, a little familiar, somewhat familiar, or very familiar. And I'm going to give you another 10 seconds or 15. think I'm missing it. Maybe just a couple of people, and then we're going to end the poll. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll now. I'm going to share the result with you. So we have a mix, not at all familiar, just 17%. Most of you are a little familiar, so that's good. And 33% of you are somewhat familiar. So thank you for completing the poll. And now I am going to stop sharing my screen so that, Carly, you can share yours.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. So I'm going to start off by giving an overview of the Climate Smart Communities program in general, and then we're going to pass it over to Rochelle, and she's going to talk more about the City of Plattsburgh efforts within this program. So the New York State Climate Smart Communities program, like Odd said, I am the Climate Smart Communities coordinator for the North Country. I have 7 counties that I work with at the top of the state. And I work through the Adirondack North Country Association, which is based out of Saranac Lake. So what is this program? It's a free voluntary New York State program that any municipality can join. That's a village, town, city, or county level can participate in this program. It's really designed to help local governments participate in climate action to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and build resiliency to climate change, the unfortunate effects that we're all going to feel in the future. It's sponsored by 6 different state agencies. The DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation, is the one that kind of really heads the whole thing. But the program design has been informed by several different agencies, and you'll see as we move on that it's pretty interdisciplinary. It has focuses that span from policy to more actionable items like installing EV charging stations. So what are the benefits of participating in this program? First of all, you get some free technical assistance from regional coordinators like me. And there's also a lot of online resources. There's webinars, workshops, tools, and templates. A lot of the actions have guides to help you figure out how you can even start taking climate action at the local level. There's networking opportunities. There's ways that you can connect with other municipalities that are doing similar work. You get presentations like this from Rochelle, where she can talk about what it's like to be the coordinator, what it actually looks like to do this work at your local government level. And you get leadership recognition. A lot of communities have already started taking a lot of these actions, have already been doing climate work. Sometimes they don't even know that it's categorized as climate work, but it gives recognition at the local level for work that's already been happening. And there's a certification program. So this is a framework that can help you if you don't even know where to start, gives you steps. There's guidance on which actions to take first, where to start, and what every municipality wants is funding. So participating in this program makes you more competitive for certain grants, specifically the Climate Smart Communities grants through the DEC, the Zero Emission Vehicle rebates, which I'll talk about later. And this program has a strong focus on planning, which will make you more competitive for other grants, not even within the CSC program, but having a plan in place can make you more competitive for other grant programs as well. So I'm going to talk about what it means to be registered versus certified in this program, just because I'm going to be showing you a map of all of the registered and certified communities on the next slide. So a registered community within the Climate Smart Communities program is just a community that's made a commitment to this program by passing a local resolution, adopting the 10-point pledge, which I'll show you in a little bit. This is pretty low stakes. Some communities have passed this pledge and haven't really done anything since, which is obviously not what we want you to do. We'd like the communities to be taking these actions, but this is really something I like to emphasize with the communities that I work with, is that adopting the pledge is very low stakes. It's a voluntary program, so there's nobody knocking on your door telling you that you have to do this or that, but it shows the state that your community is willing to start to look at your emissions, look at how you can change your government practices to better to better prepare for climate change. And then our certified communities are the ones who have made the concrete progress, the ones that have actually started to take action and accumulate points. So all of the actions have varying amounts of points that they're worth, and you can become bronze or silver certified throughout this program. We don't have a gold certification yet. And there's over 130 actions within this program. So it's extremely flexible. It can really be tailored to meet the needs of your community, of your resources, what your capacity is. They range from planning, policies, outreach, implementation. So here's a map of the whole state. This was recently updated as more communities have just become certified in the past month. So we currently have 381 registered communities within the Climate Smart Communities program. Those are the little blue dots that you see on the map. We have 118 certified communities. The brownish color are the bronze certified, and the gray color are the silver certified communities. As you can see, we have a lot of bronze. There's a few silver, but that's a little bit harder to reach. And throughout this program, there's been 3,816 climate actions that have been completed and approved by the DEC. Now, when we zoom into the North Country, which is the area that I serve, you can see that it looks like it might be a little more sparse or spread out. I think that's to be expected. If we go back to this state map, you can see a lot of the communities that are participating or certified in this program are kind of concentrated down in the Hudson Valley region, down near the cities. That's because usually those communities have a lot more resources. So up here, we have 4 certified communities, and we have quite a few registered, and we're always trying to add more. So the first step to becoming registered, like I said, is passing the Climate Smart Communities Pledge. That has 10 pledge elements. These need to be adopted verbatim within the resolution. These pledge elements are ranging from things that are focused on building a climate smart community. Our first pledge, which is focused on having a coordinator, which is Rochelle's role that she'll speak about more, having a task force. They're focused on reducing energy use, waste management, public education. They're pretty broad because within each of these 10 pledge elements are many, many actions that a community can participate in and take on. And it's designed that way specifically because a little town in the North Country is probably going to take a lot different actions than a large city down in the capital region. I pulled out a few action examples. These are just random ones that I pulled out to give you an idea of how diverse the program is. What most communities start off with is doing a government operations greenhouse gas inventory. So looking through all of the energy bills, looking at how much electricity use, fuel oil is used to heat the buildings, how much diesel and gasoline is used by the DPW or the police department, looking at where the energy use and the emissions are coming from so that we can know how we can reduce those in the future. There's a climate action plan, which is a plan that a municipality can develop to reduce their emissions. You can look at solar installations, looking at a vulnerability assessment. This is going to be looking at where in your community is there a lot of flooding? Where in your community are there pockets of high density populations, but not a lot of trees? Those areas might be more prone to, those areas might be more prone to heat exposures. Smart growth policies, so looking at the policies that are really governing how the city is developed and expanded out. Brownfield cleanup and redevelopment, looking at those spots in your cities that might be an eyesore, might have contamination that are just not being used. How can we redesign those and reuse those to really better our area? And climate change education and engagement. So really reaching out to the community beyond government operations and policies and trying to educate the wider community. So this is a pretty big, broad program, but you get a lot of support throughout it. The assistance that you get is mostly from your coordinator, which is me, but it also can come from collaboration with other coordinators like Rochelle's position. You'll get guidance on how to form a task force, which I'll talk about more in a little bit, and Rochelle will touch on a lot. How to go through the portal and organize documentation, more of that technical stuff that's not as fun. We help you out with that. And In my role, we meet weekly with our regional coordinators, the other people that work in the Eastern Territory, and I meet bi-weekly with everyone at the state level and our DEC liaisons so that we can really start to share the best practices and expertise. So it's not something that you're doing in isolation. You are connected to this wider network of people all across the state that are trying to do this local climate action. And the best part everyone loves is the grant program. So one of the most popular grants is the ZEV program, the Municipal Zero Emission Vehicle Program. The ZEV awardees were just announced, I think last month or the month before. We got several awardees in the North Country, which was really exciting. This is rebates for electric vehicle for town fleets or for charging stations. The ones that were awarded in the North Country were focused on charging stations. So we're going to get a lot more charging stations up here, which is really great for our local communities, but also for the tourism. A lot of the Adirondack communities are based on tourism. So having these charging stations so that people who have electric vehicles can charge and come visit is extremely important. And then we have our CSC grants. Unfortunately, these are a competitive 50-50 match grant, which means that, you know, your application has to be really good to get the grant. And the 50-50 match means, if you're not familiar, that whatever money you get from the grant program from the DEC, your community has to match that to get the grant. However, the match can be an in-kind match, which means it could also be staff time, volunteer time, use of equipment. It doesn't have to be a monetary match. It could also be a match that comes from expertise, from time spent by municipal staff or from the task force. The best part about this grant is that these grant programs is that they cover both planning and implementation. A lot of other grant programs out there only want to fund implementation grants. They only want to fund things that are actually, you know, getting put in the ground, road changes that are happening. But these ones can also cover planning, which is extremely important when we're thinking about our climate work, the future of our communities, and how we want things to go. And they cover both greenhouse gas mitigation and climate adaptation. So our grant programs will focus on how you can reduce your emissions, but also how can we adapt to the effects of climate change, whether that's flooding, extreme heat events, invasive species spreading, etc. This is probably my favorite part about the program, is the formation of a task force, because it's really bringing in our community, trying to get them more involved in the program. It's a group of volunteers that will drive that climate action at the local level. This is a group of community members, but also municipal representatives. It's trying to also break down that barrier between the municipal staff and representatives and our wider community. It helps create a space where we can all speak and talk on the climate action and what we want to see for our community going forward. They serve as an advisory board or a steering committee that can help the board, the mayor, whoever is trying to work on these actions, give them a little bit of guidance and expertise. This is extremely important for our smaller municipalities that maybe only have 1 or 2 people on staff at the municipal level. The task force of volunteers can really help take some of that grunt work off of their shoulders when they're already so bogged down with other tasks. And I wanted to highlight some of the North Country communities that are interested or already registered or already certified in this program. The ones that have the asterisks next to them are the registered communities. The ones that have the pound symbol next to them are certified. So in the North Country, our certified communities are the Village of Saranac Lake, Village of Lake Placid, Village and Towns of Potsdam. And then City of Plattsburgh hopefully is going to be changed from registered to certified by the July deadline, because we are almost about to apply, and Rochelle will talk more about that. But you can see that there are quite a few municipalities in the North Country that are already participating. Over here on the right side on the bottom, you'll see that there are several communities that don't have an asterisk or a pound symbol next to them. Those are the communities I'm working with that are just starting this process. I wanted to kind of highlight the range of possibilities. So the Village of Saranac Lake, they're already certified. However, they're still taking actions to expand that even farther. So right now we're developing a climate action plan with them on how they can further reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. They've already installed heat pumps, installed charging stations, but we're starting to look a little bit deeper on maybe how we can reduce the energy use at the wastewater treatment plant, how the police department can maybe adopt an anti-idling policy to reduce the gasoline use. Over here on some of the other ones, the city of Plattsburgh right now is working on several actions that Rochelle will go over, but we're also looking at how can we collect all of that documentation? What do we need to take pictures of so that we can get approved by the DEC? And then the ones that aren't registered or certified, for instance, in the town of Franklin, which is a very small municipality in the Adirondacks. If you're not familiar, it's kind of where Vermontville is, Bloomingdale, if anyone knows where those hamlets are, there within the town of Franklin. Right now we're trying to recruit task force members because it's a very small town, not very populated at all. So we're working right now on how can we recruit more people from the community to participate in this climate action and help us out. The town of Keene is looking into how can we get the board to pass the resolution. We're focusing a lot on connecting it to their already adopted strategic plan. Where do they overlap? There's a lot of issues with flooding in that area. So we're looking into some of the climate smart communities actions that are focused on flooding. For the village of Messina, similar thing, trying to recruit task force members, looking at their downtown revitalization initiative grant and how that overlaps with this program. So using money that they've already been awarded to also get points within this program. So the point of me showing you this is that these communities are all going about it in their own ways and using creative ways to use the resources that they already have to participate in this program and further their climate work. And now I'll pass it over to Rochelle.
Hello, everyone. It's lovely to be here with you and to share a story we're really proud of. It's a story of grassroots activism, beginning with a Plattsburgh high school student coming to the Common Council and asking it to ban plastic straws. His plea led to a partnership between the Plattsburgh High School Green Team and the City Sustainability Committee. And then together we organized a presentation for Earth Day 2019 and urged the City Council to take the Climate Smart Community Pledge. After working with Mayor Colin Reed on a CSC template resolution, one of the resources we had access to, it was presented to the Common Council and passed unanimously. I was appointed task force coordinator and the mayor appointed members. Several CSC actions were undertaken at that time, including the development of an environmentally preferable purchasing policy and recycling in government buildings. The city also applied for a CSC grant to do a greenhouse gas inventory and climate action plan, which it won in 2020, a matching grant. And yes, that match was the result of in-kind, the in-kind kind of economy. Unfortunately, COVID hit and the task force activities were interrupted, as was so much. And go ahead. We renewed our commitment in 2022. Once again, volunteer efforts contributed to progress. Councillor Elizabeth Gibbs and I worked to reestablish the task force. This time we wanted to expand membership and draw volunteers from the community. I spent 2 months recruiting members, and Elizabeth and I brainstormed and rewrote a new draft resolution, presented it to the Mayor Rosenquist, and we collaborated with the city attorney. And once again, the council passed it unanimously. You can see the central focus is on promoting climate mitigation and adaptation. And the CSC provides an extremely useful and practical set of guidelines. And of course, we have wonderful resources that help us along the way. And thank you, Carly, again and again. And go ahead. Yes, so for the most part, the task force has offered action recommendations, but we hope to encourage more collaboration in this area. We are an advisory board, and we actually carry out some of the actions and do the work to get it done. Next. We're a fairly diverse group, but we'd like to diversify further to represent a wider cross-section of our community. Collectively, the task force members are from all walks of life and have skill sets that bring a ton of resources to our works. All are passionate about the work we do, and we're all aware of the profound gravity of it. We just recruited 2 new members and wish to increase our numbers so that our work can expand. As you know, there's a lot of work to do. Next. So this is a wonderful logo and a motto, and I'm just so proud that this is a result of a collaboration we did with a group of SUNY public relations students, and that partnership is something I'll discuss later. Next. Now, this is a nice hefty list. Most of this list is comprised of initiatives the city had taken on its own prior to the establishment of the task force. And it's going to receive CSC credit because I was able to document it in the CSC portal. And the documentation is really, it's a variety of things according to the requirements of the action, but you just basically have to have evidence to prove that you fulfilled the requirements. A few actions are directly the result of task force work this year: community campaign, heat pumps, organics management plan and waste program in government buildings, water smart landscaping education, climate related public events, and social media. More about these later. Next. Now, as I mentioned, in 2019, we applied for the grant. That was one of the first things we did upon the recommendation of our advisors, and we won. And the city was able to hire a consulting firm, Vermont Energy Investment Corporation, to guide this work. And for months, VEIC has been collecting data, inventorying energy use and carbon emissions, and it used 2019 as a baseline for its data. This part of the project has been completed and will serve to develop a climate action plan to set reduction targets. And that's going to be going on in the next few months. It's very exciting. I think we're one of the first in this area to do such a thing. The process of developing a CAP, or climate action plan, will require collaboration between VEIC, city staff, SUNY Plattsburgh, and the task force. Next. This has been, this is just something that we're so proud of, and we're, of course, going to need to be subject to review, but we have really these 120 points are an astounding accomplishment in just a year. I mean, thinking, we started April of last year, and with Carly's help, we'll fortify our application and hopefully get our certification in July or that period thereafter when the application is due. Now, collaboration and good communication, well, those are always really invaluable qualities. But this has been an evolving process, one with the inevitable ups and downs, and that's because city officials are tapped out with the daily business of governing, and they sometimes have difficulty finding the time to make room for CSC initiatives. Now, we have, developed a process, and I suggest that to begin with, anybody who's starting up, to do what we did not do and wish we had, have a joint orientation meeting with the municipal governing body. and develop a mutual vision. That's a good starting off place. We have been kind of just evolving. I hold regular meetings with Mayor Rosenquist, and I suggest you do the same so that you can review your priorities and goals, and then also that time, that's when actions are recommended for initiation. I think it's really important to be able to track your progress. And, it took some time to get that kind of reporting down pat. And eventually we developed a Google Doc that keeps running tally of the actions that we're doing and their point total. I have the link there. I think it's probably a little cumbersome to try to show that right now. It's not really necessary. So next. So over time, we found our way and have a clearer sense of how to effectively organize. We have working groups, and those are a wonderful thing. It really is an invaluable means of targeting projects and efficiently managing work. Each group has a leader and is made up of both members and volunteers. So we've got organics management. They're currently just now conducting an audit of the government buildings and the food scraps they generate as a fulfillment of our policy. Water smart landscaping, it's done a bunch of work to spread the word about the benefit of planting native species. Community campaign is working on educating the public about the value of heat pumps, and event planning. That's another one, and we've put on several events. I did suggest some ways to tweak our functioning, and I think we're really set. And we've also included a couple of other new working groups. So we really have the ball rolling and feel successful after a year's time. Next. Now, these partnerships, I just alluded to one earlier when I showed you the logo and the motto, but these are invaluable ways to really engage the community and enrich the work you do. You can see that we have made wonderful partners with SUNY Plattsburgh, Clinton Community Health Department, Clinton County Health Department, Compost for Good, a nonprofit, Pointe Rush State Park, Cornell Cooperative Extension, and Master Gardeners, even the Lake Country Village where I actually live, Landscape Committee, and of course the Lake Champlain Sea Grant, and Ode, we're very proud as one of our members. Yes, and really to do the work, we really have to engage the community and reach out to them. And I write regular press releases to announce our meetings and to inform the public as to events coming up. And I just wrote one recently about what we've accomplished in a year's time. So that's a really important aspect of what task force work is. Next. And here's an example of some of the tabling we do. This one on the left, we participated, or we actually, Ode and Jennifer Talon organized a wonderful event, Earth Day event at Trinity Park, and we tabled, the task force tabled there among other wonderful participants. And we were also at the ADK Gender Alliance Pride event last summer. And we want to organize more community events. This one was friendly conversations about climate. We had a wonderful speaker. You maybe know Kurt Steger. He's a professor at Paul Smith College and an author of many books. And it was well attended. We also had tabling at that. Next. And our social media outreach is it's really instrumental. It's a way to remain in the public's radar when so much competes for its attention. And I want to say that as a result of that campaign that the SUNY Plattsburgh students did, we increased our social media engagement by 114% because of their help. So I want to end with this quote. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, dedicated citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Thank you, Margaret Mead, for that. And I just feel very proud that the City of Plattsburgh Climate Task Force is evidence of that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carly and Rochelle, for this wonderful presentation. So now we're gonna do a little Q&A session. If you have any questions for Carly and Rochelle, please feel free to use the Q&A box. While you think about maybe a couple of questions, we had some that came up through the chat. So Carly, it's a question for Carly. When you show the list of communities in the North Country that are registered and certified, someone asks, please clarify North Country. What is the geopolitical definition?
So the North Country, I forget exactly who defined it, like the regional development something. But it's the 7 counties in the northernmost part of the state. So that includes Lewis, Jefferson, St. Lawrence, Franklin, Clinton, Essex, and Hamilton counties. So anybody in the state can participate in this program. I was just highlighting the North Country because that's the region that I specifically work with. But if anyone on this webinar is from a different part of the state that I don't work with, they can either reach out to me or and I can connect them with the coordinator that will best serve them. Or on the website, the Climate Smart Communities website, there is a page where they have all of the contact information for the coordinators for people interested.
Thank you, Carly. And the follow-up to that was Queensbury did not appear on your list. Is there any reason why?
Because they're not in one of the counties. Yeah, so Warren County is not in the North Country, but a lot of times people say it should be because Warren County, we've had other people from Warren County say that they align more with like Adirondack, North Country policies and stuff, but unfortunately, whoever made these regional divisions didn't include them. I think they're in the capital region.
Thank you, Carly. I see a question that just came in the Q&A. Do all or most communities create working groups like Plattsburgh did? I'm most interested in the water-focused landscaping group, and is there templates or materials provided for communities interested in that issue?
So I'll speak to that one. The communities that I work with, a lot of them do not have these separate working groups, but that's also because a lot of the communities that I work with are smaller. I think that some of the larger communities downstate do have a version of these working groups where people focus on specific actions. That came out of, and Rochelle could speak to this more, of the interests of the task force in Plattsburgh, but they also have a lot more people on their task force than some other communities do. Some communities only have 5 or 6 people on their task force, and maybe 3 only show up to a meeting this month or that month. So it really depends on your capacity. Some communities are slower moving through this certification process because they focus on one action at a time, which is sometimes easier for the municipal staff to handle, easier for the board to approve, and easier for the task force members to manage. So it'll really just depend on your community, your task force, and how involved everybody is.
Just speaking about the action itself, it is a highly defined action. Now I can't remember which of the pledge elements it is, but it focuses on the development of a demonstration garden to show the benefit of planting native species because they conserve water, they attract birds and insects, and so that's the focus of it. There's an educational element, and that's the part that we are focusing on right now. We just gave a presentation featuring the work of Douglas Ptolemy, who's the author of Homegrown National Park. And we plan more events like that. We're working closely with the Cornell Cooperative Extension Master Gardeners to also feature a very in-depth look at what kinds of plants are beneficial in our area and native to them. We also, with the city, applied for a Lake Champlain Basin Program grant, which we did not receive, but we are going to reapply next year to put a garden around the McDonough Monument right on City Hall Place in Plattsburgh.
Thank you.
So can I speak to that just a little more?
Yes.
Yeah, so there are, with each of the actions, and I put the link to the Water Smart Landscaping one in the chat just as a little example. It kind of goes through why is the action important, how to implement the action, has a lot of details on it. At the bottom of all of the actions, they do have links to additional resources or examples that you can access. In addition to that, on the Climate Smart Communities website, that picture of the map I showed you is actually an interactive map where you can click on different communities that are certified. The registered ones don't have any documentation up, but the certified communities, you can click on them, look at their report, and all of the documentation that they submit becomes publicly available. So for any of the actions that a community might want to pursue, you can always look to other communities that have been approved for this action to look at what they did, how they carried it out, what the steps were. So I think that's a really helpful resource going forward.
That's what we have done.
Thank you. Another question for Rochelle. What would you say are the rewards and challenges that you experience as the task force coordinator?
It's a very rewarding job. It feels as though this program with its very specific action gives such helpful guidance, and presents solutions to what can be kind of an overwhelming problem to solve. And so it's very systematic and you have a lot of support. And the rewards for me are that I can, work with a number of people who have a lot to offer. The opportunity to work with the government and staff, the mayor, all of that is gratifying, but it can be challenging, as I said before, because there's a limited amount of time that a government official has to spend on this. And so that is really why I suggested that anybody who wants to initiate this kind of effort really begin by developing a strong sense of collaboration and shared vision.
Thank you, Rochelle. I don't see any additional questions in the Q&A box or the chat. So I guess we are going to conclude. I just wanted to thank you, Carly and Rochelle, for a very insightful presentation. And it was a pleasure to have you with us today. Thank you all for attending, and we hope you enjoyed the webinar. You will receive a follow-up email from me with the PDFs of the slides, as well as a link to the recording. So give me a couple of days. And then when you leave the webinar, you will be sent to a survey. So it's only a couple of questions. It won't take too long, but we would love to have your feedback. So with this, I would like to wish everyone a good rest of your day. And thank you again for being with us. Bye-bye.